mouth. Webs of lies spinning from their mouths. Start looking and listen for a little while. Pay no attention to the men behind the curtain. Just look away when you see the blood spurting down to a steady drip. I promise to leave you a little bit. I'll be back for another drink tomorrow. I love the taste of your terror and your sorrow raining in your blood. It's never enough.
Hello and welcome to the Iron Mountain Hour. It is Sunday, May the 1st, 2022. My name is Cliff. I'm joined by Tim and Dustin. We're coming to you live from Carter County, Tennessee. We're here on the Iron Mountain, hence the name. And it's we had a lot of different things we could have chosen from for this episode because one, it's May Day. There's lots of esoteric things behind that, and two, it sounds like we have audio there. And number two, it's episode 33. So we want to thank you for joining us and sticking with us. If you haven't subscribed to us yet, we'd like to invite you to do that. Hit the notification bell so you know when we go live. It's going to be Sundays and Wednesdays at 10 p.m. We'd love to have you in the live chat. We'd love to have you share this video with other people that you think might enjoy it. If you're from our area or if you're not, we got a little bit of something for everybody. But you know, we could have done for episode 33, we could have done something Freemasonic. Yeah, especially with Disney being in the news lately. But I think I don't. Why didn't we do that? No, I'm just playing. No, we have one already ready for you. This one we called Mockingbirds, Monarchs, and Mind Control, and Mountain Dew. Remember, if you were with us, I think it was episode 7. It was called "It'll Tickle Your Innards."
Straggler beard thing I'm trying to figure out. It's gonna, the geometry behind it's gonna mess me up the whole time.
What you need to do is prop it on the table.
Don't help me.
Prop it on the table. Prop it on the table.
Don't feed me. I'm not. I'm a struggling thing, but I'm not a baby bird. I must learn to fight on my own. Well, I think I gapped it or something. We'll figure it out.
You're learning something over there. Hey, let's get your doctorate.
No,
right here.
Sponsorship. It's our sponsorship. I'm Dr.
Man, we need to start getting some money.
We
from
do have a sponsorship. Tammy Heather's CustomSexToys.com. We will get to that later, though. I know Cliff has pressing matters to get to before we start talking about Deal to the Dough.
Hey, thank you, Tammy, for that sponsorship. We'll look forward to getting that check in the mail. I guess that's where that's coming. But we could have... we could have done a lot of different topics for tonight. We could have... gotten into a lot of different things, but we had a lot of M's going on, which, you know, is the 13th letter. So there's a lot of people that put a lot of occult significance on that letter. Yeah, there you go. Tim, you okay?
No.
You got the COVID there, buddy?
No, I just don't stay cracking it.
Oh, okay.
I stay on the vape like it's like I'm hotboxing a joint.
Gotcha.
I know you're supposed to like nurse them, and I just don't have the patience for it.
That sounds like a hard way to live, but a fun way to live. Balls to the wall, Leroy Jenkins.
Really killing that vape. He's so hardcore.
But what we decided to talk about tonight was three CIA projects that have been, to a degree, declassified. Monarch, one of the ones, or not, Mockingbird, hasn't been officially declassified, and I guess Monarch hasn't either, although some references to it have been made in declassified documents. But most of what you have going on those is from the Monarch documents is something from Kathy O'Brien. She wrote a book called The Transformation of America, as in Transformation of America. It came out, I think, in the early 90s is when that came out, and where she claimed to be a victim of the Monarch Programming. Which was a mind control programming allegedly used by the United States government to facilitate transfer of information clandestinely, and lots of other things for blackmail. A lot of purposes we'll get into a little bit later. And then you had MK Ultra, which is probably the most famous of the 3 M's that we get into before Mountain Dew. MK Ultra you could probably give us a pretty good summation of that real quickly, couldn't you,
That
Tim?
good Mortal Kombat game.
You could go ahead and do it. My brain is going in a circle because I could say this first. The conspiracy people that give Dolly Parton a hard time, the butterfly, Monarch butterfly, is one of the connections they make. They say that she's Illuminati propped up, and the butterfly is kind of the symbolism.
I see.
Because I guess in the conspiracy world they say that the Illuminati can't do anything without telling you what they're doing, so they mark everything.
Well, there must be a lot of ladies out there with those tattoos on their back that are connected.
MK Ultra on your crack.
Yeah.
Yeah. MK Ultra, from I guess the quickest summation would be massive experimentation with psychedelics to see if they can control people's brains. Not just psychedelics, but that was one of the biggest focuses.
Okay.
Was MK Ultra also included with like remote viewing? Was that part of it?
I believe the things that they used led to that in other programs. I don't remember exactly what the remote viewing projects were called right off the top of my head.
Okay, I didn't know if it was part of it.
I mean, the research that they gained, that they learned, or that they did in MK Ultra, it did lead to things where they went to remote viewing and stuff. It all came out of, well, not all of it, but a lot of it came out of what they were doing in Germany when they imported the Project Paperclip scientists and researchers who were studying these things for the Nazis. So they brought those over after the war. I think it was about 4,000 scientists and researchers that they brought over as part of Project Paperclip, and that was, I'm sure coincidentally, shortly before they started into like these things like Project MK Ultra and Operation Mockingbird. I said Project Mockingbird earlier. Project Mockingbird was actually, that was where President Kennedy was listening in on a New York Times reporter. Yeah, he was wiretapping a New York Times reporter to, because they said because he wrote a story that he didn't like. It's hard to say why. I mean, if the reporter was working with a spy, obviously he wouldn't like the reporter, but that would be, in my opinion, a valid reason to wiretap a reporter if you knew that they were working with a spy. But if you just didn't like the story that they wrote, that'd be a different story, in my opinion. But that's Project Mockingbird. Operation Mockingbird was an operation to embed CIA operatives in positions where they could influence journalists or directly as journalists in the United States and foreign media. And then the Monarch was the programming using the advanced techniques that were they were learned during the MK Ultra project, but they moved along into when they were actually being, I guess MK Ultra could be looked at as the research phase, and Monarch could be used as the operation being put into practice rather than just being studied. But before we get into all that fun stuff, we do have one little thing. I don't know if you all know, we're from Carter County. We're right next to Johnson City, Tennessee. Johnson City was actually where Mountain Dew, that original, redneck nectar, came from.
Red nectar.
If you ever see somebody,
They need to make more like red nectar, like have a redneck Dew with like red.
yeah,
nectar.
that's pretty good. Yeah, Mountain Dew
I
red
love it.
nectar.
Good-
Well,
good
didn't they call it Johnson City? What
That
was it? Johnson City Gold.
yeah.
That's what they called it. Well, no, I didn't care that much for it.
like a malt beverage or something.
But
But people thought it was good.
that was made to be mixed with whiskey, because that was the original thing for that. Well, anyway, we're from Carter County over here. We're right next to Johnson City, where the Johnson City Gold, the original Mountain Dew, the Tri-Cities Lemonade, started. It actually was a recipe that came from a man in Knoxville, and it got its start being bottled by the Tri-Cities Beverage Company. It was eventually bought out by PepsiCo. But let's see, we've got a story from 2019 from the Johnson City. Oh, that's right. I have to switch to the other camera to get this thing to work right now, since it's doesn't like to work right. So let's switch to the other camera, and then hopefully I can show you. No, it's not wanting to do it either. There we go. Historical marker unveiled recognizing Johnson City as the home of Mountain Dew. This is 3 years later in August 1964. After what? It's 3 years after what? The Mountain Dew and production rights were acquired from Tip by the Pepsi Cola
like
Company.
Trail, like this was the second sign. Or
Yeah,
something, like
maybe.
you're supposed to walk and read them.
Maybe. Well, they were acquired by PepsiCo and they distributed across the United States, and it became the third biggest refreshment beverage in the U.S. In 2012, PepsiCo introduced a new Mountain Dew called Johnson City Gold, the only Pepsi product known to carry the name of a U.S. city. So, according to the press release from ETSU, the soft drink now known as Mountain Dew was first produced in Knoxville in 1946, but the flavor was born in Johnson City. And with that in mind, we're not in Johnson City tonight, but we're going to try something out here. We did an episode 7, It'll Tickle Your Innards, where we talked a little bit about Mountain Dew.
Tickle 'em!
And I forgot to mention, if if you see, it's the original white trash nectar, the red nectar. If you see a baby with a bottle of soda, it's probably got Mountain Dew in it. So with that in mind, we're going to try out this latest
Abomination.
You didn't enjoy it?
We
haven't tried
haven't
it yet.
tried it yet.
Oh, we haven't tried it.
We tried one of these in episode 7. I forget the one we tried in that. It wasn't that bad. What was that one? I forget the name of it. Well, evidently wasn't very memorable, but it wasn't bad. But tonight we're going to try Mountain Dew,
So bad.
Flamin' Hot.
It was
It was the
It was
apple.
apple Mountain Dew.
Yeah, and we're actually I was going to try the alcoholic Mountain Dew, but it has artificial sweetener in it. I'd much rather just drink some old high fructose corn syrup
We popping them at the same time.
than artificial sweetener. Hey, let's hit it on 3, 2, 1,
Man.
and bottoms up.
What are we drinking here? Flamin' Hot. I thought
Smell it first.
I thought this was a joke meme.
You get a little bit of heat on the end of it, but it doesn't taste like much of anything. It doesn't taste like Cheetos, which is a good thing.
Yeah. Tastes kind of
I'm
like
trying to figure out what
stale
the taste is.
lime, like stale lime chips.
It's strange. Strange. What you got there?
Tammy, well, what the hell are you selling, Tammy? If you're watching,
Is Tammy in the live chat? Tammy, come in the live
tell
chat.
her to, if you're gonna, well, I can't, she's talking on the phone. What the hell are you selling, Tammy? You're selling devices that corrupt the minds and the youth. It'll even corrupt the youth of people.
Is George Soros paying Tammy to corrupt our youth?
Tammy Soros?
We can't say,
I don't even know
but
what
somebody's got to ask these questions. I don't know what that is
Like, I'm
either.
trying to, like, I get the zing at the end.
Yeah, that's really all I'm getting out of it.
That little zing of Mountain Dew, which really, the more you focus on that zing, the more you realize you're getting more and more thirsty. Mm-hmm. So
Yeah, I did take a big swig of it. I'm not a fan.
I can't rate it.
Yeah, there's really nothing to rate, is there?
The more you drink, it has that little bit more of a spiciness, but
It's not really registering to me either. Man, I've tilted our camera up way too much because it wasn't showing me on the full screen.
Do you need me to fix it?
Yeah, well, why don't you, let's see. Y'all talk about the Mountain Dew real quick, and I'll fix the camera.
Okay, well, if you could imagine getting a glass of sweet tea, okay, sweet, there's sugar there. Let's get a glass of sweet tea, drop a single spicy Cheeto into it, and let it dissolve overnight.
and squirt some lime in it.
That's
Then squirt lime in it.
not what it tastes like.
That's pretty accurate to me.
A watered down Cheeto.
Okay, you have someone that ate an entire bag of the Flaming Hot Cheetos, burps in your face as you're drinking a Mountain Dew.
You're adding the burp aspect. Now I'm turning on the drink. Let me go in for a second.
I gotta see if I can get some of this burp action going on here.
No, I'm sticking with my original claim. It tastes like stale sweet tea with one single Cheeto dropped into it and just left to evaporate.
I think you're right about that.
Very watered down.
Yeah.
I don't get any flaming hot from it whatsoever. It tastes like very watered down Mountain Dew.
It has just a little. It tastes like watered down Mountain Dew with a little kick of some kind of cayenne or something on the
Yeah.
very end of it. But
You
yeah,
gotta drink like half the can before you really even notice that.
now
Chat
Dustin,
agrees. Two people say yep,
Yep,
unless they're
yep.
agreeing with some other ridiculous thing we said. I guess we're all in agreement that this thing is just watered down. There's not much flavor.
Now Dustin and I have a backup Dew. Oh, which camera I'm on here? Here we go. Dustin and I have a backup Dew.
In case
The Mountain Dew
it's
Spark.
Dew.
Yeah, a Doo Dud.
Um,
Which I think that's fair to categorize it as a Doo Dud.
I'm gonna drink it for the rest of it, but
Yeah, I'll probably drink it, but
I don't know if I can. I'm starting to. I don't know if it's like.
you're starting to taste the burp.
Or taste the burp. God, that's a awful slogan. It tastes the burp. No, I don't know if I'm psyching myself up, and I'm starting to feel like almost like a jalapeno burn in my throat.
Yeah, just barely.
But I'm like, they
It's
can't
got a
be,
little-
so I must have an ulcer.
nah,
I'm freaking
I just
myself
have a
out.
strange urge to go play Call of Duty.
Because he drank the flaming hot Mountain Dew.
Seems more like a Gears of War drink.
He's gonna change his name to Kyle and punch holes in drywall and
Yep.
play Call of Duty
That's it,
after
lots of
drinking this
drywall.
sticker. Yep. So
Give me that vape.
I think overall I'm gonna give it a
The
to me
taste that in your mouth.
to me it gets 3 stars out of 10. Nah, 3 stars out
going
of
10?
3 stars out of 11.
Okay, hold on. Let's
That's
do
where I'm going.
first. We are going to do an 11 scale.
Yeah.
We're going to rate things here. We'll do an 11 scale. Now, what would you rate this one?
I would give that one a 7 as far as yeah, 7 out of 11 on a Mountain Dew scale.
Agree. I'm not a Mountain Dew fan anyway,
Okay, well,
but
what
that
would you
one
give,
is actually kind of tasty.
What would normal Mountain Dew be like? Like, what's your favorite drink that you would give a 9, not even a 10?
For me, a Fanta orange would be like a 9, and then a Red Bull would be a 10, or it would be
Red
an 11.
Bull?
To me, yeah, I'm different. I like a tangy drink more than I like a sweet soda.
Okay.
Anymore, yeah.
So
This is my 9. This is my 9. The only thing I would go higher on a 9 than a Dr. Enough would be a 10 is properly made yerba mate.
I've never had a yerba mate.
Okay,
Is it you can get a yerba mate soda?
No, it's like they prepare it like a. Have you had it?
I've never had one where you actually have it in the little pot.
Oh, I was going strictly on soda. But,
No, it's more like they prepare it like Brazil and other places like tea.
okay, there's other drinks I'd prefer to soda, but yeah, I'm just saying my 11 as a soda is a Red Bull, and then like a regular Mountain Dew is probably a 7, about where this Mountain Dew Spark is. I bought those Mountain Dew Sparks because I went shooting today, and I always like
Spark.
That's what that is right there.
Oh, those other
It's like a what you call it, raspberry lemonade or something like
lemonade.
that.
I
Yeah.
like it a heck of a lot better than
And the
that.
spicy Cheeto.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I bought them to go shoot them because they're a lot more interactive than paper targets, and
Cans.
you shoot them and they bounce and they spray everywhere, and it's fun. But the guy at the Dollar General told me, I told him that I was going to go shoot him, and he said, "You know what'll explode, don't you?" I said, "What's that?" He said, "Get you some." I shit you not. He said, "Get you some white gravy, some baked beans, and some nacho cheese sauce." Everywhere. I said, "All right, that's some random things to put together to shoot." But
The gravy with its thicker consistent, especially sausage gravy.
yeah,
Sounds expensive though. It's like $2.99 a jar.
Well, still. I feel like that would have like nice ballistic coefficient. It would blow pretty.
it probably would. No, the sodas blew pretty good because I accidentally shot some of
Clam
them.
chowder
Oh yeah,
makes a pretty nice explosion.
I bet
Wow.
it does.
Because I
Like
found
clam chowder is expensive. I just don't like tomato bisque.
it years ago. I found some clam chowder that had been in the back of the pantry for like a decade.
I ain't never
it was
found no
like-
mater biscuit.
Okay, that was really good one.
He just found clam chowder. That's what he shot. Yeah.
That's what we had to shoot. Okay.
Yeah, and it was just like it was a really old can of it. It's like, see what this does.
I would really like to get a hold of that. All week I've been thinking about that stupid. Well, the last couple of days I've been thinking about that Thunder 5. I'm like, I want to shoot that.
You
gun.
need one of those. You can get one for about $775 off a gun broker.
Well, you know
That's
where-
about what they're trading at.
The Thunder 5.
I don't think so.
The Taurus Judge is a copy of the Thunder 5, and the Thunder 5 looks like a steampunk Judge, basically.
Yeah, it looks like after you fire. It looks like
it was
that
made in
gun
Piney
on,
Flats.
Outlaw Star that he would shoot the caster bullets out of. That's how big it is. It looks like it would like go psst after every bullet, like it needs to let steam out.
I really think you need to have one of these, Tim.
We started talking about the Judge on Wednesday, and then he knew about this monster that I didn't know about that was made in Piney Flats. That I thought that was pretty cool.
Their photo bucket apparently isn't working anymore on
It's
this.
a weird looking weapon, man. Like I said, it looks like
Is photo bucket still a thing?
I don't know.
Here's the Thunder 5. Made in Piney Flats, Tennessee.
Man, can you imagine a pistol whip from that thing?
Oh, come on.
Is it not showing up? You're going to see the Thunder 5.
You're going to see that, folks.
Thunder 5, that sounds almost like a metalcore band too, with like Atari
There we go.
playing in the background. Yeah, like
Let's blow it up for the people
open
here.
and force the band.
Now you can't see it on this one, but it says MIL Inc. Piney Flats, Tennessee, and Tim's right. This does look like a steampunk revolver or some sort. It looks like it's gonna.
Still not a steampunk
shoot
as,
it.
like a Chiappa Rhino where it's based off that Mataba style, the Japanese.
I'm not familiar with that one.
Oh,
Well, how do you spell that?
Chippa Rhino. And it's
Chiappa?
rhinoceros. Yeah, Chiappa.
Ooh, yeah, that's a little
That
steampunk
looks
here.
like
Isn't it?
something like
I've been wanting one of the 6-inch barrel
Oh,
variants.
where'd the picture go? There it is. There's a 5-inch barrel.
Same thing. It's cool because it actually
got the
uses
barrel
a
below.
striker fire mechanism and it shoots the bottom cylinder.
Yeah.
And with 357 Magnum, it basically it pushes it
Better
back.
eliminates a lot of the recoil
Yeah,
because it's not pushing it straight over
I
your
think
end.
it's like a 70% recoil reduction
Wow.
over a standard revolver.
Well, that's not bad. 357 is not too bad on its own, but if you reduce that a lot and put it on a 5-inch barrel, I bet that's like cake to shoot. Mm-hmm. But yeah, when I was up there, those cans, they shot pretty good, but I accidentally shot a full magazine of my carry ammo, which is like $25 to $29 per 20 rounds. And I shot a full magazine of it accidentally at those cans, and it blew them up nicely, but it really wasn't worth that. Yeah, I would rather have shot my cheap.
Trash ball ammo.
Yeah, exactly. Got some remanufactured stuff from Mountain City Supply. It ran pretty good, 124.
we need to bring back the blunderbuss. I know we've talked.
Hey, there's still some out there. People have blunderbusses.
We're too dependent on the bullet. I want to have a gun that if I run out, I can just like grab
Slam broken glass. Yeah.
put my shoe in it and shoot it too.
It'll be like that gun from Fallout 4, the trash gun.
Yeah, that would be exactly what it would be. Hey, if you're out there in the chat, give us a hello. Tell us what you think about any of these Mountain Dew products or Tammy's business and her sponsorship. Call it, give us a shout to get your discount code there. Now we've got talked about Mountain Dew a little bit. We're going to get into a little bit of the other M's that we were talking about.
Massachusetts was one of our M's.
Well, it wasn't, but we did talk. That did come up in some of these. There's a lot of M's here. So when we talk about Operation Mockingbird, not Project Mockingbird, Operation Mockingbird has not actually been declassified, but it's been referred to in declassified documents, and it's been talked about. It's pretty openly reported over the years since I think 1978. It's about when this started being reported. But we've got this quote out there that CIA Director William Casey said, "We'll know our disinformation program is complete when the American public." And I've linked all these articles in the description of the video. I think I got most of them in there. So if I didn't, you can Google too. I'm not the only one that can Google. But this in the comments or in the description of the video. Did CIA Director William Casey really say, "We'll know our disinformation program is complete when the American public and everything the American public believes is false"? And this is something we've seen in like infographics and stuff on social media a lot. But I've seen people say it's true, people say it's not true. Well, the person who is the source of this quote has commented on this, and as we'll get into here, a lot of people say that he never really said it because the only source they trace it back to is the political researcher and radio show host Mae Brussel, and she was the host of the radio show Dialogue Conspiracy. Now, she got her start. She was one of the first people publicly questioning the Kennedy assassination and saying perhaps Oswald did not act alone. And so she was, a conspiracy theorist way back. She was probably one of the reasons that they started the label conspiracy theorist to begin with. But she's not the only person that can, where the quote comes from. It came from a lady by the name of Barbara Honegger. Now let's look up Barbara Honegger real quick so I can tell you exactly who she was, because she was a journalist, and she worked as a researcher in the Hoover administration, and she was a researcher and policy analyst in the Reagan administration. I knew she was in Reagan administration. I didn't remember what she did, but researcher in policy administration. And I think she worked for the White House, but if y'all want to Google that, you can. But so she was the source of that quote from CIA Director William Casey. And here is Barbara Honegger's quote. She's trying to clear up the air about where this quote came from. And so she says, "I am the source for this quote, which was indeed said by CIA Director William Casey at an early February 1981 meeting of the newly elected President Reagan with his new cabinet secretaries to report to him on what they had learned about their agencies in the first couple of weeks of the administration. The meeting was in the Roosevelt Room of the West Wing of the White House, not far from the Cabinet Room. I was present at the meeting as an assistant to the Chief Domestic Policy Advisor to the President. Casey had first told Reagan that he had been astonished to discover that over 80% of the intelligence, now she does in quotes, intelligence that the analysis side of the CIA produced was based on open public sources like newspapers and magazines. As he did to all the other secretaries of their department agencies, Reagan asked what he saw as his goal as director of the CIA, to which he replied with the quote, which I recorded in my notes of the meeting as he said it. Shortly thereafter, I told senior White House correspondent Sarah McClendon, who was a close friend and colleague, who in turn made it public." That's for Barbara Honegger. So she was there when it happened. William Casey really said it. And what he says up here is that he talks about over 80% of the intelligence that the analysis side of the CIA source produced was based on open public sources like newspapers and magazines. That sounds awfully reminiscent, or I guess what happened back in 2015, 2016 with President Trump, or then, candidate Trump, yes, they actually were spying on the guy, and they used it as justification. They used news stories that they planted. So the CIA, or basically it was Hillary Clinton working with the FBI, her campaign working with the FBI to plant these stories, and then because these stories were in the news, the FBI then said, "Oh, look, these stories are in the news. There must be something to this. We need to get a warrant to start spying on this guy so we can figure out if this is true." So it sounds like an old trick, basically going back to the 80s at least, and probably on further than that. And they used it successfully for so long, so why wouldn't they keep doing it? But that quote comes from a person who was actually in the room when it was said, and she acknowledges it and claims it and states that she's the source of the quote. So it was his goal as the CIA director to make sure that nothing that we, the American public, believe is true. Now, the CIA, they did have a legitimate role, I guess, if you believe the reasons for why we're at war with some of these other countries. But you would want, if you're going to war, you're going to want to have spies. If there's a just war to participate in, you're going to have spies. You're going to want to know information about the enemy. You're going to want to feed bad information to the enemy. So in that regard, you would definitely want something like a CIA, maybe even using foreign press to feed bad information to your enemies and stuff like that. But the CIA is strictly prohibited from doing that in the United States. But as we see here, that really hasn't stopped them. It's been referred to as Project Mockingbird, Operation Mockingbird. And we've got this here from We Are Change. It says you could get a journalist cheaper than a good call girl for a couple $100 a month. More than 400 American journalists in the past 25 years have secretly carried out assignments for the Central Intelligence Agency, according to documents on file at CIA headquarters. Now, this was written in 1977 by Carl Bernstein, who was of Woodward and Bernstein fame, of who broke the Watergate story. And so back in 1977, more than 400 American journalists have been working with the CIA in 1977. 400.
Theory on this.
In many instances, CIA documents show journalists were engaged to perform tasks for the CIA with the consent of the management of America's leading news organizations, including the heads of CBS, Time, the New York Times, the Louisville Courier Journal, Copley News Services, other ABC, NBC, AP, UPI, Writers, Hearst newspapers. I mean, you name it. Miami Herald, Saturday Evening Post, New York Herald. I mean, pretty much all the major news organizations in the country at the time were working with the CIA. And I feel like that if we look at modern news, especially in regard to a lot of the things that came out of a lot of the news that came out of Ukraine is a good example of that.
No more skulls, fellas.
At wartime, you know governments are going to lie. You can't believe either side because they are propagating a war, and they are rolling around in the floor trying to find their bait.
No, we're good. Just don't break another cat skull.
The goat skull.
Is it goat?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I saw a great video the other day of a goat ramming a chicken hawk because it was going after his chicken. Continue. So.
Man, I would kind of like to watch that video now.
We need to watch the video of the dude stabbing the tire so I can explain his relation.
I watched that.
All this out here, what? How am I supposed to believe that maybe all of this, like all this gathering here, like all this stuff you've presented, right? Showing that the journalists are corrupt. There's a policy that they've talked about that Germany had a similar one back in the day when it was like at its peak before they started, Gestapo and everybody. China has the same policy right now, and I have to think America probably does the same thing. It's what they call it's I can't remember the buzzword for it. Essentially what they do is they make a lot of laws, but they don't enforce them. And so you get used to the idea, like, so if you know a big stretch of road that has a speed limit, but there's never any cops on it, you'll just break it, But they see you doing it, and then they bust you, and then one day they're like,
They can bust you whenever they decide to.
Right. So if you do that with everything, they've got dirt on everybody. And I'm just wondering, like, right now, they've got all these journalists, according to this article here, we've got journalists been doing this for a really long time. So what if showing people, hey, look at all these crappy journalists is a quicker way for them to convince all of us to round up, to round them all up and, essentially get us to get rid of journalists for them.
I think they just buy the journalists off and kill the ones.
Well, I'm
that
saying,
don't.
like, it takes a certain kind of person to want to start reporting on the news and stuff. But if the entire public gets convinced that everything is either fake news or I don't know, there's some kind of reaction. There's some kind of reaction that's going to come out of all this. That's all I'm saying. There's industry tree.
Well, hang on, we'll get to that, Tim.
I never can tell what's on here.
Don't give the show away.
What's on here? I couldn't tell from that building if it was like a 1984 reference or if it was something they're actually building.
Well, it's a little bit of both. We'll get to that. Now, we were talking, I guess, Mockingbirds about the least of our worries if you get into which one of these are, if they're actually doing what they say they are. But
Well,
I can only assume that if they had 400 journalists working at the direction of the CIA by 1977, I can only assume that number has expanded exponentially as the amount of journalists have, especially with the advent of 24-hour news.
there's been evolution since then. Like, we say journalists back then because that's what you had doing papers and stuff. Now, I'm gonna take the crazy stance on this one and just say I partially believe this one, so you guys have somebody to argue with. If they had all those journalists back then, I have to believe that it's possible that people like Joe Rogan, Jimmy Dore, Mark Maron, and fill in the blank,
Alex Jones,
fill in the blank, with any very famous podcast, Fausch, I don't know, and just say all those guys could potentially either be controlled opposition or just bought off. Or there's the other theory that when they like somebody who does a lot of good dumb work for them, where they just artificially propel them, so they give them a little success to them because they're saying what they want. Well, this is an example of what I'm talking about, what you're pulling up there. That, like, I know people are arguing over people like Elon Musk and Joe Rogan right now because we got to take sides. But is it entirely possible that they're not just actors on the big stage? They both come from. They both have the background.
Joe Rogan's an entertainment man, but I don't know. I don't know. I think Joe Rogan is genuine, but I think he's afraid a lot, and I can't say I blame him.
Alex Jones is best friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. Say if Alex Jones is in there, what about him?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I go back and forth on Jones. Sometimes I think he's.
I'm just playing the game. I'm committed.
Yeah,
to the role right now.
no. I'm serious. I wonder about Jones sometimes. I go back and forth on him because one of the reasons that I do is because he's one of the first places that, okay, if you start finding out about that a lot of these conspiracy theories or quote unquote conspiracy theories are true, he's one of the first people that you find when you're on your path to researching this information. A lot of people will throw Alex Jones movies at you whenever you're getting started, and they are very intriguing. But it's kind of like, it's almost like you get whoops, I'm capturing the screen here. Or maybe I'm not. It says I am. I hope we're not, because that's not what I'm trying to do right now. But he's one of the first people that you encounter, and it kind of puts you in a box where, if you watch Alex Jones every day and you take all his information in, he whether or not all the information he presents to you is true, which I think for the most part he is very accurate, and I think he does have a good does give you a good idea of a lot of things that are going on. At the same time, if that's the place that a lot of people that I know that follow conspiracy theories, they go straight to Alex Jones, and that's where they stay. And they don't get their information from anywhere else, and if it doesn't come from him, then it's not good. So I can see what you're saying there, but because it's almost like a limited hangout, where, but then at the same time, Alex Jones exposes a lot of important things too. So
I think Project
I gotta go back and forth on him.
Would make more sense if they called it Monkey See, Monkey Do, because I think that's what they're doing. Like, if I'm committing to my role, what they would do is they would give you an Alex Jones who is such a character that he raises such a stink, other people start doing what he's doing, but they maybe do it in a more palatable way. Mm-hmm. Like, I think Jimmy Dore is one of the he gets a lot of info out there, and he doesn't get near as much credit as I guess he should for getting stuff out there.
He turns me off because he's always like, okay, so the CIA is running the journalists, and they're lying to us about all these things, and that's why we need Medicare for all. And
none of these people are.
That's everything he does turns back to that.
Well, none of these people are what I would say completely balanced, because Jimmy Dore, well, he'll do the hard work as far as finding the journalism, like really good stories. Like, he was one of the very first ones to report that the sarin gas was a hoax. Mm-hmm. He was the one that called out. He called a bunch of people. He did. I really do think it was a bitch move when he spit on Alex Jones. But
yeah, it was. He was trying to show off for his friends, and it wasn't very cool. But at the same
time, well, luckily he got out of all like Chink and all those. What's her name? He got out of like the Young Turks and all them. That. Yeah. But if we're going to follow through with that, what if they're all just trying to get you to do what they're doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do we not know that that's all part of it? And yes, I'm aware that sounds like I'm going a little too far with it, or maybe not gone too far with it. I'm just saying, if I don't go all the way with it, then there's no way for you to go with it. So, is Jimmy Dore? Let's take one. Which one would you rather do? Like, one that people aren't emotionally connected to, or one that we are connected to?
Because, just do what you're feeling. Just let it go. Let it go.
Well, it's hard to debate people with people that you follow, because then you definitely have a bias. Like it'd be really hard to get someone to. I think it's like almost like almost like a lessened version of religion. People can't even begin to talk about because they're so rooted to it. And if all of a sudden you start critiquing where someone gets their news from, it makes them start feeling twitchy, because all of a sudden they're questioning what they've been repeating and believing and stuff. And let's just do Jimmy Dore. How's that? Because
do it.
That'd be an easy one. That last name's Dore into it, blah, blah, blah. He argues quite a bit with Republicans, but he also gets along very well with Joe Rogan. He's been on his show a couple of times.
Oh, and I like Jimmy Dore too. And
I like Jimmy Dore,
yeah.
but I'm just saying I don't agree with.
I disagree with him
people. I
politically,
think
but
that's a-
overall I like him and I enjoy his show. Yeah.
Well, I think one of the reasons he got on my nerves is because like he was like outraged when Bernie dropped out the first time, and then like he backed him again, and then
Yeah.
like the episode when Bernie dropped out, he was like flipping his lid, and everybody in the chat was like, "Dude,
He already sold out once.
He was gonna do it.
He's going
He
to sell
did it
out
again.
to the DNC again. Yep.
So he's either gullible, or
I
something.
know a lot of people that supported him the second time too, though.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I don't want to hold these people like the Doors and the Tim Pools and stuff to such
the
a
door.
high standard, because it's like every person on the planet you're going to meet is not going to be incredible.
No.
especially-
I mean, everybody's a human being and everybody's
yeah,
flawed.
so that's why I don't want to smack people I disagree with. It's
Right.
like, I'm going to disagree with you on something. So what if Jimmy Dore, stand-up comedian from New York, came up alongside the Joe Rogans and all them. That's how they knew him. Mm-hmm. And now he is a podcaster giving almost like the lefty side to what the Rogan people are talking about. So it looks like right now a lot of our information is coming from stand-up comedians. And is that not
Comedic.
comedic? Yeah.
Well, I mean, the president of Ukraine is a comedian. He's like from a comedy troupe. He got he became famous doing comedy sketches and he even like played the last president of Ukraine on television in comedy sketches before he became president. So that you're right that the comics are taking the stage for. I mean, and you've got like a lot of the political attacks have come from comics lately. You've got people like Jimmy Kimmel just being freaking vile and rude and you know the name of politics just
All
being
comedians.
just being disgusting.
Slapped by
Or smacking Chris Rock, yeah.
It's like I know it sounds stupid, but the first pitch the other day was Bill Burr. I don't know. I feel like what they call it in it's Clown World, and like I know we started really kind of getting that from all the crazy hair colors and stuff like that. But we were, I just really like maybe this sounds judgy, and I guess people just need to hear me out. What kind of a state are we living in when we're all looking to essentially modern day court gestures for philosophy and marriage advice and advice about love and what kind of drugs we should be taking? And I'm not going to say that Jimmy Dore and Joe Rogan and all these guys are not correct. I'm saying human beings are in a really, really rotten state, that if all of our wisdom that we need is coming from that kind of a character, because that's the only person left doing it. And it's not just I guess the left is kind of sorry for that on their comedians, but it's not for the lack of they kicked all their comedians onto the right. They got rid of all of them.
I don't know. I think maybe you're reducing it a little bit to just look at them as court gestures, because I think that some of the people you're talking about are they're funny, yeah. But I wouldn't put them as a court gesture. You know, somebody I think of somebody who's a court gesture, Carrot Top. You know that I'm thinking of him as like a court gesture.
Yeah, like,
you're talking
like
about somebody.
Gallagher.
Gallagher. Yeah, you're talking about somebody like George Carlin or Bill Hicks or Patrice O'Neill. You're talking about guys who are they're philosophers who just happen to be funny.
Yeah, but you're getting on my like. If I knew anything about like I study comedians like people study liquor and wines, and it's not good, but I do it from like a psychological standpoint, because all comedians are very, very damaged. George Carlin. Well, let me skip a bunch of this because I don't have time to sit and critique all these people. You'll get bored. I guess my major point would have been like that's who we're looking to now, and I don't really know if I want to call them philosophers. I think it's more like they're like on the Charles Bukowski level, where like they went on the left-hand path to find themselves.
Well,
you know?
yeah.
They spent so much time in the gutter at these like
I guess-
Motel 6s and stuff with strippers and doing one-night stands in these $50 clubs.
I guess maybe not philosophers, but they are spreading ideas of philosophical ideas to regular people in a medium that they can consume.
Yeah.
Because to think about things like this, it is harder than a lot of people think to really consider these things. There's a reason they teach philosophy classes, and it's the reason philosophy is one of the oldest sciences, is because it takes some practice to even think in certain ways. And I think these guys are maybe especially like a Joe Rogan or a Bill Burr are really looking at looking at these philosophical problems and applying them to their own lives and trying to apply them to modern society. And while they may not be original ideas, I do feel like that they're using their platform to put some of these ideas out there. Maybe not to try to be good people, but maybe that's just what they're doing as part of their art.
I guess I'm not commenting and saying they're bad. I think
I didn't.
I'm
feel
not
like
trying
you
to
were.
get hung up on the court gesture, even though I think that's a good analogy. I think what I'm trying to say is, like, if you look at all the comedians right now, the thing that they seem to be wise about is the thing that they had time to work out for themselves because everybody else had like a 40-hour-a-week job. Like when your job is to sit there and to tell jokes, and you did that because you have, I don't know, past trauma or something. That's why you want to stand on top of the stage and make people laugh, And I'm not trying to rag on people. I'm just saying, like, there's a reason people choose certain paths. Yeah. And, like, for example, Patrice O'Neal is like considered, like, he had a show called The Black Phillip Show, which was what was it? Phil, Dr. Phil, right? Mm-hmm. They started calling him the Black Dr. Phil because he had relationship advice and he had like prison stories and he had was trying to help people who couldn't have good marriages with their women. And if you listen, it seemed like he did have good advice for these guys, right? But if you go back and listen to the history, he's very open about why he is that way. And he will straight up tell you, when I was a young man, I was a bitch. And after I went to prison and figured out exactly what it was going to take for me to not get treated like that anymore, I had to work my way through it. And you don't know how to get from point A to point B unless you actually walk those steps. And so I think what we need to do is just be thankful that these people are giving us their experiences on how to get from point A to point B. Like Bill Burr's whole thing is he's trying not to be angry all the time, even though he still is. And like, you don't know how to tell people how not to be angry unless you're a raving lunatic that's mad all the time. And I don't think it requires IQ to get that out. That's like wisdom and experience to say, hey, look, I fell in this giant pit hole and busted my ass. Here's how not to do that, because, you know what I mean? And I appreciate the comedians on that level. I just think we're in a weird place in history where that's where we're getting our diamonds. That's all,
I get you.
All politicians are sucky. Half the country is screaming defund the police. The military is releasing some of the weirdest training videos I've ever seen in my life. It just seems like all the professions that are supposed to be serious have been like caricatured so much that we look at comedians and go, well, at least we understand what they're saying because they're supposed to be funny.
I think it goes right into your. Do you remember you were saying? Gosh, I can't remember if you said this on the show or not, or if it's just me and you talking, but we were talking about the British, how they think men dressing as women is so funny.
Back in the day,
and how this was, maybe this is a large joke.
The Queen's ultimate troll was to get all the men in the world in dresses so she could laugh at them.
Yep.
That was I don't know if I came up with that, but if you go back and look at old British humor, there's nothing funnier to them on Monty Python. Some guy with a mustache walks out in a dress. They just start losing their shit. Yeah. And it's like, can you imagine the Queen's like 136 right now? If she's like, she probably looks at like pictures of Thailand and all those ladyboys and just starts going, mercy. And then she goes back to eating a baby. But like, God, have we even talked about anything that we're supposed to talk about?
Well, we got off a little bit, but that's kind of the fun of having a conversational show.
Yeah,
man.
the MK Ultra, I guess, like, wouldn't it make sense? I mean, it makes sense that we're just in not a very good state. That's why comedians are popular right now. But like, I guess from a conspiratorial standpoint, wouldn't it make sense that all these entertainers would be your next wave of Project Mockingbird? Like Joe Rogan interviews everybody. Him and Tim Pool and a couple other people have essentially taken over the news. Yeah. And they do it in an entertaining way where you don't watch the news for 30 minutes, you watch it for 3.5 hours now. No. I'm just saying, if that's not what's going on, it'd be amazing if that's not what's going on.
Well, it could be. I mean, who's to know? Because this medium's available to anybody. So, I mean, I can imagine that people like that would be approached, but I think that ultimately they can put out whatever they want, but it's not necessarily going to be accepted by people. No. So I mean, you can put out the COINTELPRO stuff where you pose as, a member of the organization that you're trying to infiltrate, but it's not necessarily that people are going to. I mean, you look at like they put out a podcast from the Obamas, and Spotify did not renew it. In other words, Spotify fired the Obamas because they weren't as popular as Joe Rogan.
Well, you could also say that that's what they want right now, though. If you're going with my theory, that it's time.
True, but I'm saying that, but they put. Well, I'm not even saying righties because Joe Rogan was a Bernie bro. Yeah, he was a Bernie guy.
Yeah, but he represents a lot of the.
But then he does have guys like Ted Nugent on the show.
Yeah, he represents a lot of the libertarians, the new right and stuff, because he's not completely on the left, and that's. I don't know. I don't admire any of the people that we're talking about because I feel like once you start doing that, you lessen your own, you lessen your own mind once you start becoming a follower of someone, you know. But a lot of good information does that come out of all the people we're talking about. I'm just saying it's entirely possible that a lot of the people that are, spreading all the information that's being suppressed. What if all these people spreading this suppressed information are just giving us the information because the government, you know what I'm saying? Like, what that's a part of the narrative, that these are the figureheads that are leading the path for revolution. Well, the revolution needs to be contained.
That's right. I mean, you had the idea that maybe that we were going to be given, Fauci as a scapegoat for a lot of this stuff. And you're right. If you were going to revolt, I mean, if you take a look at the French Revolution for a model, you can see the way Robespierre took heads, that satisfied people for a while, but then there was never enough heads to take.
Well, that's a problem. But chop's a real problem once people run out of
That's what I'm saying. But if you can go ahead and control the narrative to the point where people know that a certain head needs to be chopped, and when that certain head is chopped, they're not going to look for heads to be chopped anymore because they feel like they got the source. So you give people a few snakes and a few 8-headed hydras, and they feel like they lop those off and they don't realize that they grow back. So we got to look at revolution in that regard too, because I think you make a good point there. And I'm not necessarily, and I know you're not necessarily saying that that's what's happening either, but it's something that that those people are being fed to us by the CIA or whatever nefarious organization.
I kind of think some of them.
I mean, I'm sure some of them are.
Like Biden doesn't he just seem like he's so pathetic? How could he not be a scapegoat?
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, but I mean the media sources. I'm just saying, it's even if some of those, I know you're not saying that they're necessarily the guys like Tim Pool or Joe Rogan are in on this, or that they're
Who's that girl that Tim Pool put a person up on the New York Times because she docked the
Taylor Lorenz?
That is what I'm talking about. That's one of the people that's going to be a sacrifice because she was indoctrinated enough that she thought she needed to go to war. Like once it goes beyond voting and it goes beyond campaigning and handing out flyers and once you go, you know what? I found out that this person's voting for somebody else. I'm going to go try to ruin their bank account, and I'm going to start putting
their address.
Like once you start going militant against other citizens, it's like how do you not see that you've been radicalized? And anytime anybody gets radicalized, you're not thinking straight. Like there's something else going on. But that's more what I'm talking about. People being fed, because that's a journalist. Are we supposed to believe that the person that did all that doxing and stuff was a deep state member? Or is that
no? Well, I don't know. The person that they were doxing was the person who runs the Twitter account Libs of TikTok, who was showing they were basically amalgamating or aggregating people who had more of the crazy looking liberal people on Twitter who are on TikTok and putting them on Twitter for people to see. And people saying, "Oh, they were doxing them." Like those people put the videos up for the public, and oftentimes
like your home address.
And oftentimes, most of the time, Libs of TikTok actually follow that account. They mostly don't even say anything about it or comment. They just repost the video.
I'm like, I guess I'm not even taking either.
But Taylor Lorenz posted her address and identified the woman who runs the Twitter feed, and they said, "Oh, it's public." Listed publicly. Like, yeah, it is listed publicly, but most of the American public isn't going to go and look at the town records to find out, where that lady's address is and what her name is, but you've just broadcasted it out over the internet to however many millions of people. Like, yeah, it is publicly available for somebody who wants to search it, but at the same time, you're not putting it in the Washington Post for just anybody, however many millions of people want to read that.
But now we're doing that. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
We've got citizens doxing each other. That's not new either, because I remember, what was the name of that girl? She was a real young girl that was like, she thinks like 13. Sky Jackson.
Yeah.
That's how my brain works. I can't remember like calculus and shit, but I remember a name that I've heard once. She doxed somebody, and I'm pretty sure it was over like had to be over like BLM or something like that. But the point was like she was like a 13-year-old girl doxing like a 10 and a 12-year-old boy or something like that. And it's like that's what I'm talking about. I guess it's immature on that level, and so you just kind of look past what she was doing, you know what I'm saying? Because she was a kid. It's still bad that you do that, but that's what we're doing. We're teaching people that it's okay to like go to civil war with each other in like this information sort of way, where it's like if you do something I disagree with,
It's kind of like that really violent one that was going on Xbox. If you hadn't built the swatting, where you learn where they and then you call SWAT team on them because they pissed you off at a video game.
Well, you talk about Tim Pool. His show's been swatted 8 times, and they had the bomb squad called on them. Now, to me, you'd think the police would realize after the first couple or second time,
guy up there with the studio.
Yeah, and they've got security and whatever, but yeah, but you got also, I can't remember what this was, but it was the CNN went to that grandmother's house. What was it she did? Was it she donated to Donald Trump or something, or what was it? And they harassed that old lady at her house like she was a celebrity, and she was just a regular person. What was it? I can't find it. But they did that. They there was also a whenever they arrested Roger Stone, CNN was out there waiting with them. So that shows coordination between the FBI and the CIA, or the media, CNN. And realistically, the FBI is probably used to implement a lot of the things that the CIA wants to do, but can't legally do domestically. But we also, when we're talking about this Mockingbird, when we're talking about media, there's something called the Smith-Mundt Act, which was passed in 2013. It was passed under the Obama administration, which formally legalized domestic propaganda and lying by the government to the American people, which it's not like it wasn't done before, but they legalized it and put it into law that it was okay to do. So we're going to have this caller on a C-SPAN from when is this from? 2018, and we're going to listen to what and see it. It's funny that C-SPAN notes on here that this lady on the right from the Daily Beast gets uncomfortable with this, but he explains the Smith-Mundt Act and talks about how he feels like a lot of the things that happen in the American public are led to happen by the media feeding certain ideas and narratives, and Hollywood and all these other institutions feeding certain ideas. Brandon Hicks says, "Boys, I'm loving this show. Keep it up. So many talented people together." Hey, thank you, Brandon, so much for watching. Yeah. I noticed that you subscribed, and meant to reach out to you and tell you thank you so much for doing that. We've actually picked up a lot of subscribers over the last couple of months, and I think I'm looking at the wrong camera now because I just switched it. Yeah, we're looking at that one. But thank you, Brandon, so much for your comment, and thank you for subscribing to the channel. Now we got up to 12,000. I think we're over 13,000 views on the channel now. We've had I forget how many thousands of hours of content. I've had YouTube channels before for like my music and stuff, but it's never had this kind of response to it. So I want to appreciate y'all. I want to tell you I appreciate you. And I've also noticed that unlike a lot of YouTube channels, most of our subscribers actually watch the videos. So thank you so much for doing that, and a lot of our subscribers watch most of the videos. So that's really awesome. That's what I want. I had to talk with another YouTuber, and we were talking about making videos, and I think maybe we had a little bit of different philosophy, because this YouTuber was looking to maximize his reach and maximize his views. And while I'm interested in doing that, I think the more important thing to me for this channel is that we have the conversation and that we're all in on this. We have an opportunity to voice it, and we have different perspectives, and that if you have those, it'd be nice to hear from you in the chat. It'd be nice to hear from you by email at the ironmountainhour@gmail.com. But that's really what the show's about. It's not me trying to preach anything to you. It's not me trying to expose government corruption. It's just all this stuff's out there, and I like to have conversations about it with my buddies Tim and Dustin, and we'd like you guys to join us too. We got another chat from Brandon here. Says, let's see, I think you need to introduce some sort of musical aspect to the end of the show. You can't have a show like this and not have you all who play instruments not do something. Yeah, we actually, we were just talking about that before, but it's kind of one of those things, if you have a show like this and somebody pulls out the guitar, that's when everybody tunes out. Nobody wants to see the guy who just jumps out with the acoustic guitar. And
I thought maybe if we do it like at the end, I think it might be cool to do some jamming.
yeah, no, it would be cool to put it at the end.
I've got the audio equipment to get it all set up. We just have to do it.
Well, we do need to do it. We made the intro of the show, Brandon. If you'll. I don't think it actually, we just played a piece of it, but the song we played at the beginning of this show is one that Tim and Dustin and I actually wrote and recorded. I wrote it back in 2008 and have played it with several different bands that I was usually playing guitar for, and I'd just come on and sing that song. And then I started playing it some with the Pillbillies. But yeah, that song, we're going to release that one on the channel by itself, and we'll probably put that up on Spotify. But we were also talking about we've got to do some original music as the Iron Mountain Hour, so I think we'll do that. But it just hasn't happened yet. But you can't force these things. I
wrote a song that we're going to do. It's called "The Earth Is Flat and That's a Hill I'll Die On," and we're going to record that one. I'm gonna start using some more. I'm gonna start using some more of the more absurd things to get views.
All right.
Brandon says he loves Tim's idea about doing it at the end. I think that's good because it kind of lets people know, like if you're more interested, and you're not interested in hearing us talk about Bigfoot and stuff like that, you could just tune in later.
Yep.
When Goff has the thumpity thump out.
That's right.
The little U-bass if we do acoustic stuff.
I think it sounds really good.
Yeah, it does.
You guys will it'll blow your mind. He's got this that sounds a ukulele.
It's
right?
it's made by Kala, the people that make the ukuleles. It's
which camera I'm at here.
Right.
He's got a bass guitar.
It's literally about that big from the back
like
of
a
it.
big ukulele, but still that's relatively small. It's like smaller than a 3/4 length guitar.
It's very
and
warm.
When you plug that guitar in, it's what, rubber strings?
It's like a rubber polymer.
It sounds like an upright bass. It sounds really good. Really, really impressive. That much sound comes out of that little guy.
You can get the clacks on them.
Is it got like a?
Has a piezo. Yeah, piezo in the bridge. Right?
But
it's like kind of built into under the bridge on it.
Dustin and I played some gigs around, I don't know, a few years ago where I'd play acoustic guitar and he would play that little U-bass, and just he and I played them, and we made a lot of sound with just those two things. So let's get back in the video before we... Yeah, that's true. I forgot about you playing the mandolin.
Have you seen the baritone mandolin? Have you seen it? Okay. After the video, if we get done, I'll show you a video. There's another friend introduced. I didn't find her. There's a girl named Sarah Jarose. I want Sarah, not how her name is. She plays. I got to listen to her music. That don't sound like a guitar, but like there's a guitar in the background, but all the lead work just sounded kind of like Celtic. It's a mandolin that looks like a guitar, where she looks like she's about 5'4" or something like that. So that guitar, it looks big. It's a big ass mandolin, and it sounds really cool. I'll have to let you hear it.
Okay,
that's cool. Sounds cool. Well, let's get back into this video real quick, because the C-SPAN caller talks about the Smith-Mundt Act, allowing the American government to propagandize people through the media. And let's hear these two journalists, one from the Daily The Beast on the right here.
Daily The Beast.
The Daily The Beast on the right here, and the one from the Washington Times on the left. Let's hear what they have to say about the Smith-Mundt Act. Oh, wait a minute. I got to turn on the... Make sure our viewers can hear this, because last time I played a video, our viewers could not hear it, and I think they can now. We're not muted on the desktop audio, so
just don't talk.
Let's just make sure.
Reality, the government could be working with the media to deceive us. and it's legal. Talk about the rescinding of the Smith-Mundt Act, please.
Yeah, well, I'll let you go there. Dan in Massachusetts, I want to reflect any thoughts from what you're...
I think that sounds to be like a conspiracy theory that's alive and well. I'm not going to comment on it.
Cheryl Sheldon?
I'm not familiar with that particular act, but I will say that back in the 1950s, there was that whole Operation Mockingbird thing, which was never formally confirmed by the CIA, but of course that was the operation where CIA operatives worked with U.S. media to shape the messages that came out of the media, and it was purportedly supposed to have hit at hundreds of journalists and reporters. And that's something that has been reported and used in different terms.
What was the message that they were trying to get across in this?
It varied. It went on for years, and it wasn't just domestic, but it was also to slant and shape how government officials worked with foreign officials as well. But don't take my word for it. Look it up.
Well, we have aspects of the government, the USIA and Voice of America, that transmit American values abroad.
I only bring it up because you say.
But I'd just like to say, Eleanor, that's exactly what we're talking about, but using that on us. That's what the U.S. and the America's Voice and the USAID and all these things, just like they did in Vietnam with the radio stations, and just like the Vietnamese used, what's her name, Hanoi Hannah, to try to convince the American GIs to quit. That's what they do. But the thing is, they're not supposed to be doing it on the American public. You can say it's a legitimate tool for espionage against another country, but it's not a legitimate tool to be used on your own citizens unless your government has been taken over by an outside force or something. But let's get back into this video real quick. We're almost done.
Conspiracy theorists, it's
sounded
ridiculous.
Well,
but
he
at the
was
same
tying
time,
mass shootings. He was tying mass shootings with the media and government interference to fool the American public.
right, and
Which
you were
sounds to me
dismissing
like a lot of
theories as
connecting
conspiracy theories as if they're ridiculous, but there are some things that our government has been involved in, including our deep state type government officials that have been recorded in history and proven.
Well, we have a moment or two. Let's get
happens, and therefore that gives great credence.
Look, the host is getting nervous.
It doesn't give them credence, but
I bet he works for the CIA. Don't you think? They're blowing my cover again. Hey, look at those glasses. That's a CIA guy if I ever saw one. He's wearing the CIA glasses. You know, the FBI has a certain uniform, or a certain, I'm not an FBI agent uniform. That's the I'm not in the CIA glasses right there. But
Anderson Cooper glasses there.
yeah, exactly. Anderson Cooper is an admitted former CIA agent, but I don't think he's a former anything.
Not even his name's not even. That's like his different name. He like a
Yeah, he's a Vanderbilt. He's
yeah.
the heir to the Astor fortune. He says has nothing and that he gave up everything. But I highly doubt that. He made it on his own with only his name. I shared something on here on MK Ultra from the History Channel. So y'all can check that out a little bit later. It's in the description of the video. I did want to get it. Go ahead, Tim, before I get into the rest of this. Finish up.
One of the internet topics that's really hot is remember I bring this up too much. You know Bloodsport, right?
I don't remember us talking about Bloodsport, but I know Bloodsport.
You're familiar with Bloodsport, right? The creator of Bloodsport, or the script writer storyline, was a guy named Frank Dukes. He, according to the internet, made all that up, right? And what, Tim? You mean there really wasn't a Kumite where people fought to the death, and that inspired Mortal Kombat? No, it was a dude. According to them, Frank Dukes was full of shit. He wrote a really good script, and then they managed to spin it. But if you look at the very end of the movie, some of the movies, like, you could believe that there would be an underground fighting tournament.
Oh, I guarantee you there's shit like that going on.
That's what he was trying to show. Like, this was before the UFC. People are doing this. But when he gets really lying is like when it's like you start doing the math. There's countless videos on this online of people that are like looking at the math and how stupid some of the stuff it was. And the more I've looked at, the more I've started to believe that I actually think Frank Dukes was in the CIA, and that they used all of that, like they wanted to inspire, because I don't know if people know this now, but like Bloodsport pretty much inspired a whole entire generation of kids to take martial arts and stuff. Mm-hmm. That was one of the most influential martial arts movies ever made. Mm-hmm. And of course, if you look at Frank Dukes, like he had like the sword that he was supposed to have won in it. If people ask him, well, where's the sword now? He says, I sold it to some Somali warlords to free children refugees that they were selling on boats
Dang.
or something. So I mean, some of his stuff is so full of shit that I'm like, it's so shitty that he wants to attract attention to how shitty he is to make himself look discredited. So now people will take all the attention off of this blood sport nonsense. Even though I think Frank Dukes was in the CIA, he's full of shit, but supposed to be full of shit.
I got you.
And CIA is a QAnon-induced conspiracy theory to induce the QAnon theory later on. I've got this written out in bullet form, similar to the way you would take notes in school, like, you know, with the big capital one and the A and the small one and all that stuff, explaining at certain timelines in the movie about
outline.
COVID did some,
Always Sunny doing.
Oh no, I didn't use any. I didn't use any twine. I've done that in the past, but this one is just bound notebook, kept it real good and organized.
Well, they
And,
would have destroyed it if you had the yarn around and stuff.
Yes, and it was released on April Fool's Day, 2020, on YouTube. YouTube is CIA, by the way. If I'm like, I really got to.
Well, they were bought up by Google, which is Alphabet, which is CIA seed money, which puts in the infrastructure in all the different countries and works with the governments and Elon Musk and all those guys and they all went to North Korea, guys, and helped build rockets and all that good stuff. So
the bottom line is what you're saying is Bloodsport was a movie created to create QAnon 20, 30 years later, just like I'm claiming. So I'm glad we agree.
That's exactly what I said. But the Project MK Ultra, it's probably one of the easiest ones to find about. It's very declassified. I shared you a History Channel article, which is like a very kind of blue pill version of it, but it gives you the main ideas. It's in the description of the video. It talks about how they did experiments on people, sometimes willingly, sometimes sometimes they didn't know they were being involved in
give them acid and not tell them.
Yeah, there was one called Operation Midnight Climax where they would give Johns. They would have prostitutes slip LSD into the drinks of the Johns. The Johns would go tripping balls, not knowing what was going on. I think one of them jumped out a window or something, didn't he?
That was one of their own people.
That was one of the people that blew the thing open and got him caught doing it.
Because his family got involved. They were like, they did it to their own person for some reason, and he jumped out of a window, and his family started researching it later down the line. Like, what in the world? Because it got declassified. It was one of the ones that kind of slipped through the rugs where the family were like, wait a second, you declassified this and you never told us that you drugged my husband. And they did a little bit more research and found out that they were drugging people even drugging their own people. So if you're drugging your own people that are supposed to be drugging people, they're doing it on levels you couldn't believe.
Oh yeah, they were drugging them like people who were observing and participating in the experiments were being drugged with, unbeknownst to them and becoming part of the experiments themselves. And some of them used drugs, but not all of them. And I think that was one of the kind of the blue pill takes of it is that this is all about LSD. They actually it's reported that they have much better drugs for mind control than LSD, and that
LSD actually doesn't work that well unless
exactly.
LSD actually does it, and LSD only works to do that to people who are stupid. Like, if you are of average intelligence but above, LSD will actually make you
less susceptible.
Yes, make
to
you less
suggestion.
susceptible. It makes you realize, unless you take high amounts, then you're going to be laying there, you know, talking to them like they're cheese crab.
You're going to be the guy who thinks he's a glass of orange juice. Is that urban legend in every town about a guy who
thinks he's a glass
of orange juice because he did too much LSD and doesn't want anybody to drink him? I've heard that from people in multiple towns.
I know the person that jumped out of the window in the Ivy League school, that was one incident. Yeah. And they made it out to be like hundreds.
Right. Yeah, no, it was one incident. You're right about that. But MK Ultra was basically the declassified person, and they said, oh, well, we stopped that back in the 50s. Well, if MK Ultra was successful, which they reported they did have some success with it, then I guarantee you that they didn't stop it. Well, maybe they stopped that chapter of it. There was one that was a continuation of MK Ultra called Monarch Programming, which is that's Operation Monarch, or was it Project Monarch?
I think it's Project
Monarch. I think they changed it to Project TikTok now.
Yeah, you're probably right. We'll get into that. Let's start off with Project Monarch Programming, which was first made mainstream by Kathy O'Brien and Mark Phillips. They put out the book Transformation of America, and they went around doing talks all over the country where they talked about how Mark had rescued Kathy. She was allegedly a mind-controlled since no one has any instruments, there should be an a cappella song sung at the end of this episode.
You got it,
We'll see what we can do for you there, Brandon.
I'll make them do it.
We got
Boy,
You're going low.
get my bass on.
well, we got the Monarch programming though that Kathy O'Brien allegedly went through was that basically they take children who had been abused and who had developed dissociative identity disorder. And if you want to look more into this, you can look up Kathy O'Brien presentation, and it's not for the faint of heart. It's got some pretty sick stuff in it.
Induce dissociative identity disorder. You don't have to use drugs to do it. You can do it through trauma.
That's what they did. They found kids that had been traumatized, and they found kids who were being traumatized by their parents who were selling CP with their own children. And when they Kathy, apparently they busted her father sending it through the U.S. mail, and she alleged that Gerald Ford, who was a local politician for where she lived in Michigan, was actually the one who came to visit their family and said, hey, if you will sell your children into this program, then not only we will not prosecute you for selling their CP or sending it through the U.S. mail, we will also make you a wealthy man. For
Dissociation is what MK Ultra is all about. In case people really want to know how mind control works, dissociation it's almost it's a buzzword these days, but it's almost like a defense mechanism that a person's brain puts up where let's choose not one of the more egregious. Let's say somebody has let's take a really harmless one. Have you ever been driving at night and then you get home and all of a sudden you realize you don't remember the last 5 miles?
Mm-hmm.
It's
like highwayman's amnesia.
It's a very similar sort of like you can drive asleep. Like one of the mornings where you go off the road and stuff when your body goes too. But there's a section of your mind. It's almost like hypnosis or dissociation. Where you've lost control because you're just so sleepy. Your automatic abilities take over because you've driven your whole life. You can do this, right? Your body gets you home. Yeah, and so your body takes over. It's a defense mechanism. It gets you home. And so if you can imagine putting someone who's in a situation...
I've done that before.
Everybody's done it, yeah. So if you can imagine someone who's been in a situation like serial rape or someone who's in a very violent, like abusive, like they get assaulted all the time, their mind eventually goes into a place where, not everybody, some people, it's called resiliency, just attack it and they never give into it. But there's a part of your brain that your consciousness can kind of tuck away into, so you don't have to be there when the bad thing happens. And it's very similar to that spot that your brain goes into when it's time for you to sleep drive. But the issue that happens, which is why people develop really bad things like DID, which is very similar to multiple personality too, just a much more complicated version of it. That's what MK Ultra wants, is the DID part. Because if you can train someone to do something without them even wanting to do it, they just do it like it's an automatic response. You can get people to do things against their will because they don't even know it's against their will. They're just doing it.
Well, I think MK Ultra was, like I said, basically the research, and then when they implemented it with Monarch, we saw things like the movie The Manchurian Candidate. Mm-hmm. There was a 50s version that was based on the MK Ultra stuff that was public at the time or that had been leaked at the time, but. You think about that was what was available for people to make a movie about at the time. Mm-hmm. They've been doing that for a while behind the scenes. As I said, all that stuff came out of Nazi Germany. There was the scientists over there were working on this stuff. Well, as they perfected their techniques and started using projects like Monarch where they use dissociative identity disorder, in a way, a good way I think to look at it is if you have someone who's being abused by their parent at a very early age. Say their father abuses them, but they still have to sit at the dinner table with their father. Mm-hmm. So they create a place in their mind where they disassociate from their personality, and it can create another personality, but I think they call it an alter, where these trauma induces and basically fractures the mind.
Well,
to where
you start getting memory lapses, like because you can't sit there and eat with your rapist, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so your brain will actually sever the memory, and that's where the personality comes from. Because after you have you
create a personality that's strong enough to deal with that while it's going on.
It's not even about strength. What happens is that personality is kind of like a bastard that gets developed against its will. Right. What happens is you have all your memories, which is you, like. Here's a giant cluster of goth memories, right? Mm-hmm. And that's you. It's all your memories and experience clustered together, and eventually, for lack of, I guess, to depoeticize it, you confuse all of that with you, right? Because if you took all that away, it wouldn't be you, right? Mm-hmm. So the sum of all this together is you. But if you start taking giant swaths of your memory out and you put it over here in brain B, and you just don't remember any of that, eventually all these clusters of memories are going to start grouping up into their own thing. And so when you phase in from mind A to mind B, suddenly mind B has a lot more to work with. And once it has all these memories and stuff, now all of a sudden you've got a second personality. Does that make sense? And you can do that with... That's probably one of the hottest ones on like Tumblr and TikTok right now, because so many people are lying about because they just straight don't know what it is.
Yeah. But it's cool to have that, yeah.
It's hell to have it.
No, I'm just saying,
survive
that's
along
what
with
I'm
it,
saying.
yeah.
People, but it's the end thing. But the idea that to get back into it real quick so we don't spill all night, but the idea behind Monarch Programming was basically to use, we know that the brain disassociates whenever these traumas are inflicted on it. So if we induce certain traumas on certain peoples, then we can cause the brain to disassociate, creating another personality or alter that we can use to program for whatever task it may be. There were the beta programming who were sex slaves and couriers who would take classified information from one person to another. That's what Kathy O'Brien claimed to be, that she was owned by Senator Robert Byrd, and she was used as a messenger. She was used as a sex slave, and she didn't remember any of it at the time until she had a deprogramming, which basically broke open her mind by Mark Phillips, which was her therapist. And Mark Phillips, he was not a doctor and he was not a psychiatrist. He was not bound by certain laws and stuff, so he was able to spend like all this time with this woman and keep her from seeing television and media, because apparently there's a lot of triggers within television media, including popular movies like the Alice in Wonderland, the Wizard of Oz, a lot of Disney movies. These were used to train these victims of this Monarch programming, and they
imagine what they're doing on a mass scale on a tinier level.
Yeah. Well, that's actually where I wanted to.
Video.
What's that?
There's a good music video from this death metal band that's kind of, it's like the whole video is pretty much Project Monarch, and that's what the song's pretty much about.
What's it called?
The band's called Abnormality. And I can't remember the song name off the top of my head.
But I bet if you search Abnormality Project Mockingbird, you'd probably find it, or Project Monarch.
Or just search them, and it's like the video they had like 5 years ago or something along that.
Well, the Monarch programming was allegedly also used to create Delta operatives who were assassins, or
that's kind of what it was. It was like the Flash, and the protagonist in the film is done to do that, and then at the end of it, they off themselves.
So it would also there was a book out there by Fritz Springmeier, if anybody's interested, called the what was it called? The Illuminati Formula to Create a Complete Mind-Controlled Slave, or something to that effect. But that was very interesting. If you read that, he worked with a woman who claimed she was a Monarch programmer, and these were the Monarch programmer, a handler for the programmers, who said she went to the church and became saved and decided to start telling people about what she was doing. There was a lot of these people who came out saying these things in the late 80s and early 90s, and you know there's always the chance that this was just a big grift that they put out back then to sell their books and videotapes and seminars and things. But at the same time, they were all saying the same things independently of one another, and were claiming to have played different roles in this thing. So I mean, it could have been if they were putting it together as a grift, they sure put a lot into it.
Do you think that because I know
for a small reward, because none of them got rich or anything.
Right. Do you think a lot of the ones because I think the ones you're referring to came out like during like the Satan scare.
They did.
Do you think a lot of that? Because we could go either way with this, and like just opinion. Yeah. Do you think that a lot of it was legit? Like we worship Baphomet, or do you think a lot of that had more to do with like that is what scares us, that's what would traumatize us, so the best way to traumatize somebody would really do like really evil stuff. So I just wonder if it was theater. I think really worship the devil in the most literal sense. That looks like something off Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I mean, I think you're probably looking at both. Probably looking at both.
What is it, Cabin in the Woods, or whatever you talk?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're going to traumatize somebody, you use imagery that they're afraid of. So that's
pretty specific for like 5-year-olds and stuff.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's scary. It's scary imagery, but I think a lot of that stuff. I can tell you 100% that a lot of that stuff has been called conspiracy theory and saying that satanic panic and refer to it as if it didn't exist. I have worked with people personally who were victimized by satanic cults in the 1980s at a child care facility. So don't tell me it didn't happen or was a conspiracy theory. It may not have been widespread and it may not have been a huge thing, but it did happen. There was some of that stuff going on.
I think what was kind of crazy about what leads me to believe that it was more widespread than they really let on is because when they started going after bands, because I remember like part of that satanic panic was Columbine, right, with Judas Priest and all that. And it's like they started going after bands like Judas Priest and what was it, Twisted Sister and stuff like that. And even me back then, I knew there were way like more evil bands, so it felt like they were going after bands that were not really even that bad, just so people would look at it and go, "These people are crazy."
It may be, and I think people were. I think a lot of the Christian right was actually right about a lot of the things that they were trying to point out, but they failed miserably.
They were also the same people who were saying we should nuke Iran and Iraq and just get it over with. So when you've got people who are saying let's nuke other places, oh by the way, Hollywood has a bunch of Satanists in it, you kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater, you know.
And they also, they failed miserably at trying to do it. They were very un-American at how they tried to. I thought their idea was to ban everything, and you had the left and the right working together on that.
It's almost like we flipped on it now.
Yeah, Tipper Gore and Al Gore from Tennessee is a senator working really hard to get those certain musical acts banned. But anyway, to get back to the topic of
they'll bring back the Man Bear Pig.
Yeah. Well, Man Bear Pig is in full effect right now. Man Bear Pig has nearly taken over. We got. To basically the idea that Tim was getting across is that how does this manifest out into the wider world? Like, yeah, we have this Monarch programming and on these individuals, but when we have this many media operatives, as many as 400 in 1977, and we can imagine only expanding since then, and we have the Smith-Amund Act, which was established in 2013, which allowed legally now the American government to propagandize and lie to the American people through the media. And you see people believe things like, just look how quickly everyone switched from COVID to Ukraine, from Black Lives Matter to COVID to Ukraine. You know what I mean? How that's the thing, whatever the thing is that's on the social media, just look how fast people pivot. Even if you're not supporting it, that's what we're talking about. But yeah, you're right. I mean, support the thing. The thing always changes. The profile picture always changes, whether it's a black square, Ukrainian flag, or a mask, whatever it may be, or the vaccine. The picture of the shot. I mean, you got people tattooing their vaccines on their, but
weird flex.
Yeah, they're
anybody can get.
Yeah, and everybody's doing that now, flexing on these things, showing that they're with the group. And well, I wouldn't say everybody's doing it, but you have a lot of people doing it as if everybody is doing it.
It's a weird one. Like, I mean, no judging on all of it, but I think. Look, when you said tattoo, I picture somebody being like, look, man, pulling it down, it looking like almost like the bullet points you'd see for like shooting down planes, like stylized hypodermic needles sticking up on their shoulder. I've got my boost next week. I got the P under it for Pfizer.
Well, but it all especially goes to signal, and you look about how you would think that the average American over the last I don't know 3 months, you'd think the average American has written a thesis on Vladimir Putin, as much as they like to talk about him and how much they know about him. I honestly don't know a whole lot about Vladimir Putin. I'm not afraid to say that. But
I've seen he's been memed for a very long time. Yeah, he's been on the internet for a while.
Yeah, and he's put out there as. Now he was like funny to see him riding around on horseback, without a shirt on or whatever. Yeah, and
how he would like randomly, like I've seen like videos like this is a Russian leader, and like little clips of like where he'll just randomly like be walking, all of a sudden he'll drop to the ground and do like 10 push-ups and then get back up and start going. And there was one where they're walking, all of a sudden he detours off the city path, goes through like a playground, goes over, does a bunch of chin ups, does like a flip on it, then comes back out and goes back like. It's like,
Well, I mean, I do know he was in the FSB and the KGB, and he like
and
trained.
he looks like a straight murderer in the
Yeah.
face. Like if I look, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, like he
No,
could
he
be
does.
the nicest dude ever in another life, but you just look him straight in the face, like man, that guy looks like he's killed people with his
Well-
bare hands.
Well, I'm sure he has. Yeah.
Have you ever seen that movie, Pan's Labyrinth?
Yeah.
The scene where the dude takes the flashlight and just starts cracking the kid in the head with it. That's who that dude reminds me of. That's who Putin reminds me of. Just looks like there's just nothing in him, just cold. Like I will like he would just like, almost like those UFC guys, the Bears back in the day. Emelianenko. Like just almost couldn't beat them. Even those guys, even the Emelianenkos, all those guys in the UFC that fought in Pride and stuff, they had more love in their eyes than Putin did.
Well,
That's what I'm saying.
I can't speak to any love that Putin may or may not have, but I'm just saying
He'd be
Fedor
Putin it
Emelianenko.
out there.
Huh?
That he'd be Putin it
it
out
could
there.
be Putin that love out there, but Vladimir Putin, he gave his reasons for what he was doing, for why he was invading.
Oh,
Ukraine.
regardless of Ukraine.
Regardless of whether you believe him or not. But I'm just saying.
Oh, I'm straight judging the guy.
I'm saying forget about all that. I'm just saying the people who have an opinion on Vladimir Putin, they have been told by the news media that Vladimir Putin is just a madman and he's just invading Russia and that he's another Hitler. And I hear these sentiments repeated by the general public on a daily basis.
Hitler had emotion. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
He's passionate to get up there and
He
scream.
did have passion, yeah.
Putin's just sitting there staring a hole at everybody.
But-
With that weird kind of half smile, like he knows something.
I bet he does.
He's just smiling at everybody like there's a laser coming.
But I
from
guess
satellite above your
Like,
head.
I guess the where I'm getting at is like just like we had the media project this whole the whole idea of everybody felt like they were an expert on COVID, right? And
Yeah.
like all these people who were telling you, oh, you should wear 2 masks, 3 masks, no, you should wear blah 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 and double mask. And
The same way with the people that
Well,
were straight telling you, hey, you should go look at fence posts or you know
Yeah,
what I'm
yeah.
saying? Like you could go both directions with that. Yeah.
But I guess you got now those people who were suddenly you know mask experts and stuff like that are I hear them going around talking about
foreign policies.
foreign policy and how Putin is an evil killer and we have to go get him and we should be over there helping and it's like you literally could not tell me why Putin said he went over there. Whether or not you believe that that's true, you should at least know, wouldn't you think, if you were going to go, if you were willing to support a cause, shouldn't you know what is happening about it or some idea other than and I think that's that maybe that's one thing that the intelligence agencies did tell us that was right, and it was kind of surprising because I didn't believe them. They said that Putin was going to invade Ukraine. It's like
Almost like they had contact with each other.
Well-
It was like, hey, it is time.
well, I think about this. I think about how quickly they pulled out of Afghanistan and left all that stuff there. Kind of makes you wonder,
They said, hey, Afghanis, here's some free shit.
we gotta get
Yeah.
the fuck up out of here
We gotta arm you guys.
because Putin is fixing to invade Russia and we want to have.
See, I think they gave Afghanistan all those weapons because, like,
invaded
Afghanistan
Ukraine.
goes. People, I guess people don't know Afghanistan's like
They're right on the door.
Yeah, like we, United States created the Al Qaeda and the slew of words for Al Qaeda to give Russia a hard time on the Afghani mountains.
Because
And-
Russia was invading them at the time.
Yeah, and now we've given them a lot of tanks and stuff. You think they're going to drive tanks to New York and blow up another building? You think they're going to drive tanks into Afghanistan and other places or whatever's touching? And, they're going to give the Russians a hard time. So,
So that's probably why we left all that stuff there.
to quote
to
George
be-
Bush, it's strategery.
Yeah, that's right. But I guess the where I was heading with this is we see a lot of this this programming, so to speak, on our nightly news programming, just in the stories that are put out there and the way they're looked at. That's why I like to look at other news sources. I like to look at a lot of different things before, and I like to keep an open mind about everything. But it's proven and verified repeatedly many times over that they will lie to you and that they do lie to you
And it's legal for them.
and it's legal for them to lie to you and that there's no reason for them to stop lying to you. So just keep that in mind when you consume your news media, wherever it may be, whether it's independent media or maybe it's this show. This is episode 33.
After all, the government does pay me to lie to you.
Now, before we get out of here, we promised Brandon Hicks we would sing a song. Do you guys know Alone by Heart? No, I'm just kidding.
As soon as you pulled up, and I was like, oh, he's going for it.
I hear the ticking of the clock.
Actually, you do.
I lie awake, the room's pitch dark.
You do have a guitar here, don't you?
That guitar is only good for slide. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've got some stuff upstairs. I moved about everything upstairs. My acoustic guitars, anyway.
Will you just sing the Gillette harmonies?
By Menon.
That's probably as many syllables as
Dude, I saw this this interview with this Carrot Top, and he was talking about how he was talking with, God, who was it? Now, man, it's going to make the story not near as funny now.
Carrot Top was talking with somebody.
He was talking with somebody, and he convinced him. I wish I could remember who he was talking about, because that's what made it so funny. But he convinced him that he had invented the By Menon song, that he was collecting royalties off of it. God, I wish I could remember what he was talking about. Oh well. Anyway, look up Carrot Top By Menon if you want to watch it. It was really funny.
Oh, and you made a reference that you put Carrot Top in his own category, and you would separate some of the other ones. Mm-hmm. And I would like to remind you that Joe Rogan ended one of his stand-ups with a handstand on top of a chair, pretending
Gene
to be
Simmons, that's
Kim
who it was.
Kardashian harpy.
That's it was. He told Gene Simmons he met Gene Simmons, and he was talking to him. He was like, "Yeah, man." So Gene Simmons was telling him, "So how are you set up financially? Are you good to?" He was like, "Yeah, well, man, I just got this, kind of stand-up thing, and I do got some royalties from back in the day when I was, the jingle, the By Minute. Well, I invented a jingle contest, or an internet jingle contest back in the day, and just me and my buddy sat up all night with a 4-track, and I recorded it. I just came up with that harmony.
By Minute.
He said he really had Gene Simmons going, and went on with it for like an hour before he. But anyway, look at Carrot Top Gene Simmons By Minute. It's pretty hilarious. And I'm not generally
I
somebody
actually
who.
don't dislike Carrot Top.
No,
I think people give him a hard time because he's a prop comedian, and
he's
because
alright.
for some reason he looks like he's made of iron. I don't know, he's
It was
scary. I
It was
don't like
creepy
it
when he got jacked there.
Well, I look at Joe Rogan, and I keep going back to Joe Rogan. He's just the only guy I can shit on that makes people mad nowadays. I look at Joe Rogan, and I know he's wide, but I also know he's probably like my height, so I'm not that scared of him. Carrot Top's a big dude. He's like this giant. No, wait a second. I'm not 5'4". Joe Rogan's. I'm 5'9".
Yeah.
But still, even if Joe Rogan was 5'9" and down, I'm not scared of him if he's huge and wide. But there's something about Carrot Top, like where a comedian could make you laugh and then kick your ass while you're helplessly laughing. That's terrifying. Like, I'm gonna get you rolling and then not kick you.
He's one of them redheaded
And
giants.
he's got that Heath Ledger sort of Bogdanavog cheek sort of thing going on. Like, he's a wild looking dude. And there's
one
a
of those
painting
redhead
above him at a
giants,
donut
so.
shop near Orlando for some reason.
Well, let's finish up tonight. I gotta go to bed. Joe Biden's Ministry of Truth. This is from the Hill. So this is where we were leading all this. The Biden administration's Department of Homeland Security announced this week that it has launched what is being dubbed a Disinformation Governance Board to combat misinformation. No, really. A government agency creating a Ministry of Truth to combat what it deems misinformation, and it's going to fall under the leadership of DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. And let's get down. This is an opinion piece, so we're going to skip all the kind of editorializing. We're just going to hit the facts here if we can find who it is that's going to be leading this. This lady.
Timing is what's so crazy.
Yeah.
I just right.
And it was right
on
after.
the nose about it.
Yeah, tell us about that. Why is the timing so weird?
Like, we're supposed to believe that something wasn't being effed with, and all of a sudden it gets bought by a new guy that we publicly don't like, and all of a sudden we gotta regulate this. We gotta have a new government board to regulate this one specific site.
Tim's referring to Twitter being purchased by Elon Musk, and the journalists.
Alphabet boys.
Yes, and all the people in Twitter freaking out, and there's a lot of perception or a lot of people thinking that these people have done something illegal with Twitter, maybe spying on people, maybe violating campaign laws and election laws, maybe a lot of different things. Dr. Shiva, I can't remember his first name. He ran for Senate in Massachusetts. He has a lawsuit in that state active because he actually proved to the judge enough to where the judge let the suit go on. It's an unprecedented case. Just look it up, Dr. Shiva lawsuit, Massachusetts Senate. But he actually proved that there is a back door between his elections commissions there in Massachusetts and Twitter, and that the elections commission, because he was causing trouble for them, they contacted Twitter and had him banned from Twitter right in the middle of a campaign. And so he's definitely got action for intelligence, or actionable intelligence for a lawsuit there, and he's actually looking really good with it. Look up that lawsuit. It takes forever to actually understand what's happening with it.
Obama lost like 1 million subscribers the day after.
Yeah, the Obama's
Katy Perry lost 2 million or something like that, where they were inflating people's numbers that they wanted to prop up.
Yep.
And that's exactly what we're talking about.
And that's advertisement fraud too, which a lot of people are pointing to that. Like maybe they're defrauding advertisers by saying they have more active users than they actually do, when they really know it's a lot of bots. And their biggest accounts, like their 10 biggest accounts, haven't tweeted anything in years, but they still have millions and millions of followers.
Who's your biggest ones?
I forget. It's like Justin Bieber.
I made a Twitter a long time. I made a Twitter 12 years ago. And I never posted. Don't even remember login or anything. So, like, when we start talking about Twitter,
you just probably been hacked by a bot account, and it's
it's been taken over a long time ago. I don't remember what my name was, but like, so when we start talking about Twitter and stuff, it really is interesting to me because it's something I'm just not on. I've never been on it at all.
Well, the reason I brought that up is, and I think it's interesting that you point that out, because They bring up this disinformation board right after Twitter came out. If you remember all this disinformation, look at all this stuff just over the last year. But look at like since the Ukraine stuff, we had the Snake Island stuff, that was fake story. We had the maternity hospital being targeted, that was a fake story. You had, which I mean, like I said, it's a war. Both sides are going to put out fake stories to make their other side look bad. But the American journalists have pushed all these stories, only the side to make the American people support the Ukrainian cause, and it may be a more worthy cause. I'm not here to judge that. I'm just saying that all the American media seems to be on one page of pushing us towards a certain cause, rather than presenting us information and allowing us to come to one conclusion or another on our own, because they're playing the Zelensky speeches verbatim, putting him up on the cover of Time magazine, and they're saying, oh, that Putler, you mean? Oh, yeah,
Hitler was Time magazine.
That Putler, he's just another Hitler. He just wants to murder Ukrainians. That's the only thing he wants to do. Now, maybe that's what's going on, but that's not what Putin's saying. You could at least report what Putin is saying. Give us the information. Let us make a judgment on our own. But all that's coming out, and we go back even to the election of 2020, and you had it recently was in the news that all that stuff in the Hunter Biden laptop, and a lot more that didn't come out at the news in time in the Washington Post story that was censored by Twitter, was actually real. It was all true. The president's son is a crackhead who philanders with his minor cousins and his dead brother's wife, and who knows who all. There's lots of video evidence and photographic evidence of him doing all kinds of ungodly things, and it's all true, but it was censored by Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and all these big tech companies. And as our channel is getting bigger, I wouldn't be surprised if they start paying attention to us now, so we might not be able to say things like this for much longer.
I'm going to say the most ridiculous crap possible to filter it, so they go, well, he's also saying that there's a pancake god, so we should probably leave him alone.
Mr. Pancake.
Pancakeus.
Pancakeus?
Yes, he's a Greek god.
Pancakeus.
Well, I do think it is very interesting that we have this disinformation, what is it? Disinformation Governance Board to combat misinformation. And
weren't there people like, well, I'm just saying, like, it's dumb timing. Like, oh no, this website's being bought, and the government goes, well, we got to do something about that. And it's like, well, that's fishy. Kind of like it's similar to what are they going to find? Like, what are they going to find that the government has to get involved? Doesn't that seem a bit extreme that the government needs to get involved?
Well, I mean, you've had people pushing for that for years. You had the right pushing for the government to get involved for Twitter, saying that it's a modern day public square and that it should protect the
so that means they're going to use it again.
Which is funny because well, that's what I was going to say. It's funny because that was the argument of the right used to be well, they're a private company, they can do whatever they want. And then when Twitter became kind of the public square, you had the left kind of take that up. Now, personally, something like Twitter, I'm not a fan of government regulation of it of any kind, but I am. I would like to have somewhere where there's somewhere that people can speak freely, but I'm not sure exactly what the answer is on that. But I think at least Elon Musk may be moving it in a positive direction if he is going to allow more discourse on the platform. You look at something like
after you, Elon. You got to have at least one villain.
I can't wait. I love when Tim gets after Elon.
You got to have at least one. Elon has to have at least one villain in the world. I'll be his nemesis. Huckleberry, if you will. I'll come after your rockets. Stupid.
Well, this Disinformation Governance Board is awfully reminiscent of the Ministry of Truth of 1984, which, as we know, if you've read the novel or even seen the book, the Ministry of Truth was actually all the ministries. Yeah. Winston Smith, he worked for the Ministry of Truth. He burned old stories
Mandela effects, if you will,
replaced them, with new stories that the government planted.
He set up and erased Curious George's tale and changed it to the Berenstain Bears. He did that sort of thing.
I mean, if you remember in the story you were talking earlier,
It's all ruined my childhood.
Winston. Oh man, and you want to pull for Winston, but he's kind of
lost me. He loses me halfway through the book.
Yeah,
I'm
you can't pull for him.
Like in the end, he proves exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
do anything you want, just don't hurt me. But yeah, and that's the ultimate goal of it, is to break you down to where you give up everything, give up all your principles, and you'll do whatever the state wants you to do. And that's what I feel like all this is leading to with the Ministry of Truth and the media manipulation by the state, is they don't want to have to force you to do anything. They want you to do it on your own.
Voluntary, yeah. It's easier that way. It's easier to convince people to do something than to force them, because we're stubborn, rebellious creatures,
And if you look at 1984, most of Winston's friends, they have no problem going along with, everything else in the society. Winston is, one of very few that actually think that there could be something more to life to begin with. And so the idea is, let's allow people enough pleasures to be able to get through this miserable existence in which we put them, and that way they'll be pliable. They'll at least stay out of our way, if not be.
Do you think we're going to hybrid with the, I know we're apping it up, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're got an app for everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I drove a lot this weekend, and that's why I got to think about this. Like, I use that GPS so much. I could have done it without it, but man, that was so much easier, right? Didn't get lost one time, didn't get a ticket or nothing because I did the speed limit.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, it almost takes over for a giant part of your driving response and stuff. And there's other ones that I'm not using that people are using, like what have you. And I'm wondering when that sort of app behavior is going to leak into the point where we're going to become so automatic, we really will be just juvenile Wall-E sort of plushy things. But you know what I'm saying? Like, if you could just get people to never even have to think, just point A to point B, then if you could give them some Soma, like what they did in like in Brave New World, just Xanax the shit out of them, and then they got a self-driving car to get them to said job. They're not going to complain because they've been benzoed up. They go inside, and now they've got a thing. They got like a Google Glass in front of their face right now, telling them to push A and B, and they're just sitting there for 8 hours a day doing like a George Jetson thing. Seems like at that point you'd become like a slave side, like a voluntarily slave, cyborg.
Mm-hmm. Total mind control slave board.
I guess mind control just through almost like John Sartre's Chinese room, where you don't need something to be intelligent if it's just following orders and it's happy. It just keeps doing it. and what the response can be. The response can have completely different implications than what the thing doing it does. It, the outcome completely,
Also reminds me, randomly for the Monarch stuff, the game, the first BioShock.
I haven't played it. People like it though.
There's like a whole thing with like the protagonist. I don't know if we ever want to play it or something. Because it's like he has like something like that with like a certain catchphrase, and he gets you to do all these things throughout the whole game, and then it comes to it and you're like, what? It caught me by surprise the very first time I played that game. I didn't even notice it the whole time through the game, and then you get through it and it's like he recaps stuff to you, and you're like,
he's been
subtly manipulating
that basically you were implanted to do this to begin with from him.
Yeah.
So he's basically like, he implanted in these memories into you, and when he says this little catchphrase, you pretty much got to do some kind of atrocious things when
Well,
you look back at it.
Thing. Like, if you can get they don't need, like, I think that's where people get confused with, like, the Manchurian Candidate scenario is they need to create a whole other personality. They don't need to do that. They need to get you to do one action on command. And that's the only thing they need to do is get that one little dissonance in there. And, ding, whatever they were talking about, like, that would be the idea.
The catchphrase is, would you kindly?
Oh, is it?
Yes, it's like, would you kindly? And then you go and do these kind of atrocious things.
Would you kindly suck the life force out of that little child there so you get that's what the game, right?
Yeah.
Let's see.
So, like, could you do that, induce it with just apps and electronics, I guess would be my question. Like, right now we're talking about doing it to, like, psychedelics and brainwashing, but, like, if you could just get someone to be okay with a certain behavior for long enough, could you escalate it using just, like, one of these,
I'm sure. That's... Or what if there's already is one?
Maybe we don't have free will. Dun, dun, dun. What are we like John Denver for?
Cause we're gonna sing our way out of here.
Oh no.
Thank you for joining us here.
Do we know this one?
You know this one?
I don't know if I do. You might have to. You have to.
Oh,
lead
you
it.
don't know this one? Oh man, I thought
Not well
everybody
enough.
would know
Not
that.
well enough that
I thought everybody would know
Well, I think
that.
I'm not harmonized with you or harmonize with you on this one. You can lead it.
Well, I got me a fine wife, I got me old fiddle. The sun coming up, I got cakes on the griddle. Life ain't nothing but a funny, funny riddle. Thank God I'm a country boy. Well, life on the farm is kinda laid back. Ain't much an old boy like me can't hack. Early to rise and early in the sack. Thank God I'm a country boy. I think that's enough for
Enough?
you.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, there you go, Brandon. We'll do a little bit of singing there for you, but yeah, we'll try to put some more musical content
I'll bring you an
in
acoustic
the.
next time.
I've got acoustics upstairs. I just didn't want to go up there and get them in the middle of the show, but we can bring one down here and we can do a little ditty, and then so Dustin can bring his uke bass and we can do a little bit. I definitely want to do a little bit more music into the show, and I definitely want to put that song that we recorded out on its own. So I'll do that before next week's episode. Thank you for joining us for episode 33. If you're still with us, you shoot us an email at theironmountainhour@gmail.com if you have any ideas for the show or anything you'd like to see on it. Have any other comments, put them in the chat or comment on the video after it's closed. And we're going to close it out now tonight. You boys got anything else left to say?
Oh, I'm not going to call you out online right here, but you probably need to take care of that. You're at high risk because of what you do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll do that later.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Tim.
Yep.
Hey, Dustin, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Thanks for providing the flaming hot Mountain Dew.
Water,
The Cheeto Mountain Dew.
water.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next week. Appreciate you joining us. We'll see you Wednesday where we're doing news and current events roundup, and then we'll have another episode for you next week. Thanks for joining us.
Winky, winky.
Later.